And broadcasting. Okay. All right, everyone. I think we're going to get started. It is just about 6:30, and we have about 20 individuals that are joining us as registered attendees, and we also have some that are viewing us online on the library's YouTube channel. So welcome to everyone that's in tonight. And also, Lauren, thank you for coming back to do a second session in our series, in our job search series. And I know we're going to cover some new material tonight as well. Allow me to introduce myself to everyone. My name is Patty Smolin, and I am a business liaison librarian with the Schaumburg Township District Library. And we have put together a series to help job seekers during this time. This is our second of 4 programs, and they will all be available on YouTube for a period of time. So if you haven't registered for the remaining 2, there are additional dates. The next one will be next Monday on the 17th, and then the last one on the 24th. No, I'm sorry, the 20th. The 20th, yes. Monday is yeah, the 17th, and then the 20th. I am going to put my name under the chat, which is where we can open up for questions throughout tonight's session. But I'm just going to put my name right here, along with my email address at the library. So while I am not a career coach and I am not an advisor, I am a librarian that can work with you remotely to identify quality resources that the library can provide to you If we are your home library, great, that opens up some more doors to remote access. If not, you can become a reciprocal borrower and take out some of the print material in the library, and I can walk you through some templates of cover letters, resumes, also do some background informational searches on the industry to help you become a stronger candidate in your job search. So if I can help you along those lines, please, I'm taking a look at that quick question. Please do get in touch with me. Email is the best bet to do that. So typically we would be offering what's called Book a Librarian, but we're not meeting one-to-one with patrons right now. I can meet with you over the phone or remotely on a Zoom call. The library is open. Our hours are a little restructured for now, but the mornings are devoted to seniors and those most at risk for an illness, and then we close for a few hours and for a surface cleaning, and then we open up in the afternoon from 2 until 10 during the week, and then we have weekend hours as well. So I have a question here before we begin. Do we have a resume sample from last time?
No.
No,
I
we
can.
had a handout from last time, and if you did not receive that handout, you're welcome to get in touch with me and I can provide it for you. And we will have handouts for tonight's session too. It's just we were all a little bit stunned and stopped because of the storm. So I'm hoping everybody is fine and your properties are fine and your well-being is solid, because I know that windstorm really came through. I was not able to get handouts to you beforehand, but I will get handouts from tonight's session from Lauren to you by tomorrow. But I don't think it involves a sample resume. There was other material that was covered, and that is still viewable on our YouTube channel.
But you know what? I'm going to write that down, and I'll put together or pull one from the internet or something of a sample that I absolutely love, and I'm going to include that.
Because you had segments of good pieces of resumes last time, but it
Right.
wasn't one complete
Right.
resume. It was, the objective, the summary statements, and you did like a before and after about how to really rev it up.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll put something together that isn't going to conflict with my client's anonymity, confidentiality, anything like that. But you know what? I'm happy to share something like that with everyone here too.
Thanks, Lauren.
So yeah.
Okay, so the next session would be next Monday, the 17th, is Maximize a Mobile Office and Produce Remotely with Bree Reynolds from FlexJobs. And then we are welcoming Carla Miller from the Washington Post on the 20th. That is that Thursday at 6:30. Shift gears and source new job opportunities. So those are the two sessions if you haven't yet registered for them. But tonight, Lauren Milligan of Resume Day will help us unravel the mystery of ATS, which are keyword scanners, share social media best practices, and show how common Google tools can be used in uncommon ways for a job search. This presentation is guaranteed to give you a leg up in your job search, and of course we're going to have time for Q&A. Q&A can come in the ways of this chat, which is available to all of you, or also the Q&A. And those that are watching through YouTube, I will be bouncing back and forth and capturing some of your comments there too. So with that being said, Lauren, thank you again for coming back to the library Zoom virtual platform. And thank you for all of our attendees who registered. And I'm going to take my video and my sound off, and I'm going to sit in attendance.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Patty. And I'm really happy to be back again. And I am so glad that so many people are joining us, because what we're talking about tonight, is so important. Okay. So I'm going to share all the ATS secrets that I have with you guys tonight. So take a lot of notes. But as Patty said, we're going to get that handout to you tomorrow. And because you don't have the handout in front of you right now, there are places in the handout where you would take notes as I go along in the presentation, but you know what? I'll fill all that in for you. So the handout that you get, it's basically just going to be like really good stuff for you to read and remember, but you're not going to have to go back and say, oh, what did she say 5 minutes of the presentation? So we'll get that all taken care of you. And because one of your cohorts asked for it, I'll be happy to share a resume sample that is a good example of what I like to see, what employers like to see, and what the ATS likes to see. And you're going to find out in a little bit why that's so important. Okay, so let's jump into this. I am going to, there we go. Bum, bum, bum. And of course, I don't have that first one pulled up, but that's okay. So we're going to go. There we go. All right. So sorry. This is what I'm looking for. Okay. All right. So, ooh, this thing's jumping around like crazy. Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna have to skip it like this. I don't know why that thing isn't working, but it's a weird day. And by the way, as Patty mentioned with the the insane weather today, my husband, my two dogs, and I spent quite some time this afternoon in our crawl space because of the tornado sirens are going off and everything. So I've got allergies like crazy. So all that pollen that's in our crawl space. So forgive me for that. But let's get into this. We're talking about ATS. Now, ATS stands for Applicant Tracking Software. Okay, so if you want to know more about this than what I'm going to discuss tonight, why would you? It's frustrating. However, feel free. Again, it's applicant tracking software. Okay, but when I say ATS, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you can see here in the title in the screen, I've got ATS compliance or bust. Ugh, and there's really no way around it. You have to know the ins and outs, the rules, mostly unspoken rules about ATS. Or there's a great chance, as I'll show you by the numbers in a little bit, there's a good chance that no one's ever going to see your resume. So let's jump into this so that you can start figuring out what you have to do. All right, so some ATS rules, just some general rules to keep in mind. No ATS advice is consistent. I am one of the career coaches that's on the scene talking about ATS, and there are many others. And I'll sit in different presentations and hear some different rules, and I'll go through which ones you might hear inconsistencies about. I think I'm right. I'll tell you why. Let me explain why I say that. I've actually written resumes for a couple of people who work with one of the the largest market share ATS out there, and I told them, "Tell me everything I need to know. Tell me everything I can share with job seekers." So that's where I'm getting this information from the people who are currently working with the most updated versions of this software. So when I tell you this, um, no, ATS advice is inconsistent. There's no advice that I've heard that's going to massively screw you up. Okay. So if you do hear someone else say something that contradicts me, it's most likely going to be extremely neutral information. So don't worry about that. Now, here's the other inconsistency. No employer, no employer's ATS is consistent to another employer's, even if employers get the same system. Taleo is the big one. Taleo. Two companies could have Taleo, and the experience you have with company A versus company B could be completely different because of how much they're going to customize it for their needs. Okay, so that's that can be a little frustrating, but it's something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. The next one, write for two readers. What I mean by this is this: the very first reader of the resume is going to be the ATS. It's going to be the resume robots, the keyword scanners. So you are writing for that reader first and foremost. But you cannot forget the human element in that. You're also writing for a human. So you need to continue that storytelling. A person who was in last week's presentation followed up with me and said, I'm understanding that keywords are so critical. What's stopping me from just sending a list of keywords that the employers are looking for? And my response was, well, fortunately, we're not quite there yet. We still do want to, include that human element. So this is not just about keywords fitting with what the resume robots are looking for. It really is both components, the ATS and that human reader. Okay. The next rule, and I talk about this constantly, make the ATS a formality, make your resume a formality. ABC, that stands for always be connecting, always be networking. Network enough so that people get to know and love you and say, hey, we've got this open position. You need to apply for this. Send my resume over, or send your resume over, or, just upload it into the system so we've got it. But we're going to schedule your interview, something like that. Always be networking so that all of the technical and how do I want to say this, kind of like arm's length distance recruiting efforts that employers have becomes secondary because they already have an idea that they know you, they love you, they like you, they want you on board. Okay, so always be connecting. And if you are not a natural networker, um, well, Patty, that's probably another another seminar that we should have down the road, okay? Because networking is so instrumental and huge, and I promise you, there's a 99.9% chance that your next job, you'll have gotten that job or at least gotten the interview. Uh, Networking will be a big component of that. Okay, so don't forget that. Always be connecting. And the next rule to keep in mind is simple formatting. You don't want to make things so complex. You don't want to make things so detailed or um, trying to set yourself apart in ways that make the resume um, incompatible, I guess, or just, not user friendly anymore. So simple formatting, we'll get into simple formatting, simple language, et cetera, et cetera. Really, as crazy as it seems, simple is better in terms of writing for those two readers. Simple language, here's what I mean by that. Semantic searches. Semantic search is using common words. Instead of I've had this on a resume. I've seen this on a resume. A gentleman was trying to do just that, what everyone's trying to do, separate himself from the pack. Um, the education section, he called it where I matriculated. No ATS is looking for the word matriculated. Instead of putting like career history or work history or professional history, he listed where I've been, or something like that, something that was just a little too esoteric for, well, certainly for the ATS, but also unfortunately for the human readers. But as you'll find out, if the ATS doesn't like it, like I said before, it's a good chance that the human reader isn't even going to see it to not like it. Okay, so we did a lot of work on that one, pulled that language back, told a better story, used right formatting, etc. And that's when things started to turn around for him. But it was because, one of the issues he was doing was using those uh, very unique language and positioning statements. And then resume keyword optimization. I cannot say enough about this. And I don't know if I'm repeating myself from last week. Good, because um, because I want people to remember this. So if I'm being repetitive here, but think of it like this: keywords to a resume writer is like salt to a chef. I can't do my job as a resume writer without knowing your keywords first. And you, as someone who is updating your resume, you cannot update your resume properly without knowing your keywords. So think of the resume keywords just as search engine optimization. When you go in to search something, you're going to put in the most common, most obvious, most used terms in order to get the best search results. Same thing with the resume. Think about it that way. Use the words that employers and recruiters are naturally going to be looking for when they're looking for someone with your talent. Okay. Now, ATS yesterday versus today. I hope everyone's getting my funny little reference here. What I mean by this is this: ATS yesterday, ATS actually of the 80s and 90s, they were clunky, they were cumbersome, they were definitely imperfect, but it was, first generation oh, they would actually be like machines that look like the Scantron kind of machine things, crazy, clunky, today's ATS, they are being improved constantly. They're a little bit more slick. They actually, they're programming ATS programs now to almost read a resume like a human reader. So, which is good, which is actually that's going to improve the experience and the communication between candidates and employers. Um, do I get a lot of calls now saying, wow, that ATS was fantastic? It was a breeze. Bring it on. No, I've never gotten that call. I don't know if I will. But what I am hoping is that the more they improve these, the more generational rollouts of ATSs are released, it's going to get that much easier for candidates. And by the way, um, all those things I'm telling you, I'm guessing, please put it in the chat if you've actually had this experience, but I've never come across a job candidate who said there was a really good, clear list of instructions when I went to upload my resume into this employer's system. They told me what not to do. They told me what to do. They told me which version of Word or PDF that they wanted. I've never heard them say that. So employers get the systems, customize them, program them for everything they want, and then the communication kind of stops. It's internal only. They don't relay any of that to their candidates. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it doesn't create for a good experience. And well, it is what it is. But um, yeah, so we'll go. I think it would be a much kinder employment landscape if employers would do a little bit more communication of what their expectations are based on the software that they've got. Hasn't happened yet, but if you're an employer listening to this, do that. You will stand out. You will stand out and look like a awesome employer if you take care of candidates before they're even in your system. Something to think about. All right, so why do employers use ATS? Very simply, it automates the process. Um, there are, depending on the company, the type of position, the location of the company, and a couple other factors, but those are the big three. An employer could receive thousands of applicants within minutes of putting a job lead out there on the internet. Smaller companies, probably not that many, but even dozens and dozens would still overwhelm a smaller company, right? So that's why they have to automate the process. ATS is going to go through really, really, really quickly in ways that a human never could. Okay, so it automates the process. It simplifies the results. Every candidate is based on the matches of keywords to the resume versus keywords, what they plugged in. That's what's going to be seen. And every candidate is then given, is rated basically, 100%, 98%, 20%, whatever it is. But based on the parameters that the employer plugs in, candidates are then rated on how well of a match they are. And it's nicer for the employers because all they have to do is say, okay, I want to only look at my candidates who are 92% match and up. Okay, so that's how they get this. Let's see if I can do this inside my screen here. This pile, of potential candidates into this pile of potential candidates in lightning quick speed. A human can't do that. Okay, so automates the process, it simplifies the results, and it simplifies the assessment. Like I said, they rate these, they rate the candidates, and so human resources could say, okay, so this is what we're looking for. Now we've got these candidates. Now I'm going to send this over to the department head to see if they want to filter down from there or add any keywords. So between departments, it's actually quite an easy step as well. And then depending on who has access to the ATS, multiple departments could be looking at the same candidates at the same time. Lastly, and as a resume writer, this one actually is a positive, I think, but it removes emotions and biases. And so this way, the criteria really truly is keywords, years of experience, what school this person went to, whatever it is. It's not, oh well, we're this type of company, which means we like this type of candidate. Um, Based on age, gender, religion, any of those protected classes, that really doesn't become a factor in it. Which, as you know, the EEOC exists because that often is a factor. So the fact that emotions and biases are removed from that factor is actually a positive in the candidate side. But this is all difficult. I know that. All of these, you know now you're talking to a computer where you weren't before, and you may never even get to talk to a human, and it's all very difficult. It is difficult and it is draining, and I understand that. um, let's see some more. Why ATS? ATS, so companies, ATS will serve as kind of spiders, what I call spiders, meaning a company um, can go out, they can put their ATS out to look at a lot of different, LinkedIn and Indeed and Glassdoor and Career Builder and Monster. Um, so they can go out and find candidates who possibly never even applied for this particular job, maybe didn't even know this job existed. So for you, if you've ever gotten a call from a recruiter saying, hey, we've got a job, I've seen your resume and it looks like you might be a good fit, and you're sitting there thinking like, how on earth did you see my resume? I haven't uploaded it in, that was a couple years ago, or I thought I only uploaded it to this, to LinkedIn, wherever it was. Well, those spiders are looking all over. It's really never, it's never a closed door system. The internet just isn't built to be to be a closed door system. ATS parses with the commonly used job boards, so they can go out and um, they can find that you may be qualified for jobs that aren't even on your radar yet. A job could be listed that matches your keywords, etc., and you may get a call saying, "Wait a minute, why are you asking me about this particular job that's nowhere on my radar?" But your skills could match. So that's the answer. And then, like I said, there are a lot of other customizable features that companies are able to do that's going to make their job getting good qualified candidates and not thousands of them in the door quickly. Yeah, so that's why companies use ATS. Why not ATS? So ATS, unfortunately, kicks out good candidates. This is just, it's kind of the nature of the beast. As it's kicking out people for certain reasons, there could be some really, really good candidates who didn't make right choices with the resume format, or they didn't include all the keywords, et cetera, et cetera. Or there could be people that are just spectacular in person and not as great on paper. Any of those reasons could get a phenomenal candidate kicked out of the process. And a lot of people have experienced that. The more times you upload into ATS, you might feel like that's happening to you. And the next one, proper formatting, it doesn't quantify or qualify skills. So you could have the most ATS compliant resume out there. It doesn't mean that you're the most qualified candidate, but you still might get an interview. So that's, for those people who are a great candidate who aren't getting those results, I know that can be really frustrating. And as I said earlier, the systems are extremely inconsistent from one system to the next, from one employer to the next. They're not fail proof. I can't tell you how many times I have heard from a client, just, frustration level up to here, saying, I spent a couple hours uploading my resume, answering all the questions, and then before you know it, I'm looking at the blue screen of death. Or the system blackout, or going into the next one, I have no idea if my resume was uploaded. They didn't give me any kind of confirmation that it went through. These are the things that companies are working on as they continue to update and enhance their systems. They are actually not just thinking about the employers, they're also thinking about the candidate experience as well. So hopefully, as you know, as ATS, as more and more companies adopt those systems, hopefully that means that the user experience is going to get better and better on both sides, the employer and the candidate. But this is really frustrating right now for a lot of candidates. And that's why I'm giving you an adorable little piggy, because you look at this piggy and you think, oh, okay, ATS is horrible, but you know what? This world isn't so bad because I'm looking at the world's cutest, teeniest little piggy. All right, so hopefully that brought a smile to your face. Moving on. This is what I was talking about before. Candidate, and we're going to go through all of this, so this is not going to be, you're not going to get caught up in these traps anymore. Disqualified, but not unqualified. That is, yeah, this is the biggest problem that I have, and I know many candidates have. Great candidates not always getting through. Yeah, something came into my head, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. There is a system out there that is just not great at all. So I'm going to give that one to you in a little bit, because I don't, if you can get away with circumventing this one particular system, I'm going to tell you what that is. And again, if you feel like you've been disqualified but not unqualified, it's depressing. So there's a baby panda and he's saying hello. He's waving to you saying, I love you, and I know I love your qualifications. All right, so market share here. As I mentioned before, Taleo, they own market share, and it's probably, I don't know when my graph was created. I've been using it for a little bit now, so I probably should look for an updated one, but it gets the point across. Most likely you are going to be seeing Taleo. There are others, Connexa, Brass Ring. They were recently purchased. Was it by IBM? I shouldn't say because I'm not sure, but Connexa, Brass Ring is another one. A lot of these other little ones here, they've already been gobbled up by bigger companies. But Taleo is the big one, and they are, I can't remember. I should write this down. One of the large programming companies bought them a couple of years ago, which when that first happened, I was like, great, software programmers. They're going, they can take Taleo and make it wonderful. Hasn't happened yet. hasn't happened yet, but in little drips and drabs, I think that they are doing some really good things with this system. So let's see. Okay, so now here is what the ATS does. ATS versus candidates by the numbers. And I'm seeing the chat pop up, but I can't see it. So if anyone actually knows who bought Taleo, company starts with an O. Any other time it would just roll off the tongue.
Hey, this is Patty. I just put in the chat. It was Oracle.
Oracle. Thank you. Thank you. I was thinking I couldn't get the word Oxford out of my head, and I knew it wasn't Oxford, but it was just an O word that was coming. So thank you. Yes, and okay. So Oracle, they are, some of the brightest software programmers on earth. So yeah, let's head them over towards Taleo to start making those improvements that we're looking for. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. Okay, so ATS by the numbers. So right off the bat, ATS on average will kick out 50 to 75% of candidates because they don't have the enough keyword matches to be considered, or other elements. The employer could put in, number of years required, or degrees required, whatever it is. So 50 to 75% of the candidates right off the bat get kicked out because they don't have those right matches, those right qualifications that they're looking for. And then after that, another 24% is going to get kicked out because of formatting choices. That's how, like I said, they've got to stack this big and they want it down this big in a matter of, by lunch. That's how they do it. So Yeah, that is tough. Fortunately, keep going with me and you'll learn how to, how to beat these things. But keep in mind that ATS is a software program. It can only always do what it's programmed to do and nothing more. It's not AI. It can't think on its own. It can't justify. It can't make exceptions because you're just a really nice, awesome person. No, that doesn't happen. It's a software program. 1 + 1 always equals 2. And there are never exceptions. Um, and it's programmed. It exists for one purpose only. That's not to find the perfect candidate. It's to find the least, a small amount. It's to get rid of candidates. That is really what it's, when you're just pulling away all the fluffy nice stuff that, Taleo salespeople would tell you. The reason that ATS exists is to get rid of, filter out as many candidates as possible. Okay. And for that reason, here's the world's cutest, teeniest little puppy. And I hope these little guys are making you smile. But let's think about that now. So ATS, its purpose is to really sift out and get rid of massive amounts of candidates. Knowing what that looks like can actually work in your favor. Okay, so let's talk about how that can happen. Here are some things what not to do. I'm not going to go through all this list right now because we're actually going to go through them one by one. But these are all the things that we're going to talk about. So take notes on here. And yes, I'm sending you the handout, but just please take notes because some of these are going to be, more important to you than this person or whatever. So, all right. So here we go. First of all, headers and footers. For the most part, there are always exceptions. There are always exceptions, but I'm just talking about for the most part, ATS, all of the programs, they don't read information that's in a header or a footer. So what that means, you cannot put your name and your contact information into a header. Likewise, I see some people who, and I don't do this for any reason, but I see some people who will put their contact information into the footer, like their name at the top, but then all their contact information at the footer. Don't do that because the ATS, and don't do it because it's not how people want to read a resume. But yeah, ATS can't do that. So what I always do whenever I start a resume, my writers, whenever we're starting a resume, so whenever you're starting your resume, the very first thing you want to do is zero out your headers and footers. In Word, and I know there are a lot of different, versions of Word. This is the one, I don't know if this is 10. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Anyway, you're going to go to page layout. And if this is different on your word system, then just figure out how to do this differently. But you're going to go to page layout right here, and then up this pop-up box appears. And then you click on layout. So these 3 options will click up when you click on page layout: margins, paper, or layout. You're going to click on layout and then go to header and click down, 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 and down till you get a 0. Do the same with the footer. Okay, once that's zeroed out, then you've got just the entire piece of paper that you can use, and ATS is going to be able to get into every section. Fonts. This is actually, believe it or not, this is kind of important. You want to make sure to use common readable fonts. So Times New Roman is serif, meaning it has that little kick in there. And if you look at here, Times New Roman, you can see these little that little kick off of the R. I don't know if this, probably not the right term, kick, but that's the one I use. So Times New Roman, any of these are just fine because um, these are fonts that basically are on every single computer out there. What you don't want to do, there are a lot of like font stores out there online where you can go and you can find some really cool fonts, beautiful fonts. You know what? ATS isn't programmed to read them. So it's going to look great. It's going to look great on your resume, but when you send it over, the ATS is going to go, I don't get it, so abandon. Yeah, and that's one of the ways that you can get kicked out. The ones that I use the most here, I love, and I don't, I never know if I mispronounce this. If someone knows like the actual pronunciation, I say Calibri. I don't know if that's right or not, but I use Calibri. Um, I do use Times New Roman, but I generally prefer the sans serif fonts. So Arial, and Narrow, they're pretty good. Here's the way I kind of determine this. I look at who the candidate is and to where they're applying. If you're going to be applying for a company like Google or Facebook or Groupon, um, uh, I don't know, some of the newer kind of younger kind of companies don't use Times New Roman. Just don't use Times New Roman. I save Times New Roman for people who are applying to Northern Trust Bank or federal positions, more of the maybe Fortune 500. Well, Google is falls in that, but you just want to match up. There, there are things out there, and I'm on the fence with this one, but there are a lot of people who say Times New Roman is actually an age hint, that would be an older candidate using Times New Roman. So the people who say that, they're the ones generally working for the what I call younger companies, and that's just yeah. So if you are applying for a graphic designer position, you're going to want to use Calibre or Arial. You're not going to use Times New Roman. But again, if you're applying for the vice president job of a bank, you're going to want to use Times New Roman. Um, 10, 10 and a half, and 11. Those are the only font sizes that I use. Those will work with any of them. This is kind of unconfirmed, but I've seen evidence that this is true. If you use fonts that are too small, like 9 or smaller, ATS doesn't pick it up. Intellectually, that doesn't make sense to me. But like I said, I've seen evidence of it following up with recruiters, where one of my clients sent their resume over and we did a little test, and ATS wasn't picking up uh, words that were written in smaller print. So I just do 10, 10 and a half, and 11 for everything. You can use bigger font sizes for like your name and your contact information, maybe even some of the headers, but for the most part, if you keep the body of the resume in those 3 sizes, you'll be fine. If you ever use a half, like 10 and a half, don't forget that, because when you go back 6 months later to update something on your resume, and if you make it a 10 or an 11, forgetting that you use that half, that's going to show up as wonky. People will be able to say, oh, there's 2 different size fonts here, what's going on? So just try to make it consistent however you do that. Okay, so now format. This is kind of a, believe it or not, controversial subject in the world of ATS here. I always tell people, submit your resume to an ATS as a Word doc, not a PDF, unless you see something directly there when you're uploading. If it says PDF required or PDF acceptable, something like that, unless if it specifically says that PDF is okay, then yes, obviously you can use PDF. If it doesn't say anything, then upload a Word doc, because many of the ATS programs are not able. I mean, PDF, you know what that is. The reason why people use PDFs is that they're not able to be changed, right? Well, that also means that an ATS wouldn't be able to go in and grab things from it and take it out and put it into the ATS system. And that's how an ATS works. It goes into the resume, it finds what it needs to find, takes that, and then uploads that information into their system, the employer system. PDF, they're kind of protected. They're not supposed to be penetrated like that. So that kind of bumps up against each other. But like I said, a Word doc will always work out well for you. Now, and this is important, as you're uploading your Word doc, make sure that it is a .doc, .doc, not .docx. X is, I believe, the most updated form, the most updated extension of Word. It changes how it's accessible. I think it's supposed to be more secure, but in that security, it kind of acts like a PDF. People aren't going to be, well, and the system isn't going to be able to go in and take stuff out. And that has actually been verified by 2 or 3 different recruiters who are waiting for a document. So they tell everybody, and I tell everybody, just .doc. Okay. I've had people come back to me and say, well, yeah, but if you just submit a regular Word doc, people could mess around with your resume. Well, who's doing that? No one's doing that. Don't worry about that. Don't let that be the reason why you convince yourself to send a format that just isn't going to work. No one is messing around with your resume. No one has time for no one has time for that. So don't worry about that. Really, truly, your best bet all the time is a Word and .doc. Now, I mentioned this before, the resume parsing. Here's how it works. Once you upload your resume, the system tracks it and it starts doing the keyword search. And then what it does is it takes out things that it's programmed to find. So it goes into your resume. I'm kind of picturing like those claw machines, with the stuffed animals and stuff. It's going to go in and take out information from your resume that it's looking for, and then it dumps it into their system, which is interesting because the majority of the time, employers are not going to see your resume as you've written it. Now, if you are one of those top candidates that gets an interview, it is a very good chance that they're going to go back and say, okay, now let me take a look at this person's resume. They may not, though. By the time it's all parsed and it's in the system and you're rated and everything is there, it doesn't look anything like the resume that you submitted, which, quite frankly, is another vote for the simple stuff. Don't get too leave the aesthetics for something besides your resume. So previously, with the older versions of ATS, you would have to put one bit of information on every single line. So for example, if this were my resume and this was my contact information, here's my name, my town, state, zip, phone number, email, LinkedIn profile. All of those would have to be on one separate line. Whew. Well, fortunately, now as a resume writer, I love space. I love having space in a resume. So the more space that I can create for myself gives me a better chance. That's maybe 1 or 2 extra accomplishments that I can add on to that candidate's resume. So the nice thing about current ATS, and this really is across the board, we're talking like old school. These systems just don't exist anymore. So it is now acceptable, if you take a look towards the bottom of the screen, your name, and then you can combine. So I've got my city, state, zip, and my phone number. And then on another line, my email address and the LinkedIn profile. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we've got 5 lines at the top. In the top example, in the bottom, 3 lines. That's 2 more lines that I've got. And like I said, I can use those 2 lines to add something that could just make the difference between you and another candidate. Now, also note, only your city, state, and zip is necessary. You do not need to put your street address anymore. As a matter of fact, that is considered one of those age triggers. So don't put there's no reason, no one is going to mail you anything. If they love you, if they don't love you, you're not going to get anything mailed before they have you into an interview, because everything is, online and email, or maybe phone, but no, they're not going to mail anything to you. So employers really aren't looking for that. However, give me one moment here. I feel like I should play music every time I take a sip of water. You do need your zip code. Okay, you do need your zip code. So, and the reason the zip code is actually more important than the town name, because ATS allows employers to put in their zip code, where the job is located, and then they can put a radius. They can say, show me candidates within a 30-mile radius, 20-mile radius, you know, whatever they want, but they can actually look for candidates by radius of zip code. So your zip code is critical. You can't, don't leave that off. All right, so now these are common category titles. Remember, I said that I had that candidate who tried to get extra special by using some fancy, you know, fancy language, and it wasn't working for him. Again, getting back to the crux of what ATS does, it can only do what it's programmed to do. It can't make exceptions, right? So it wasn't looking for where I matriculated or, you know, any of those other titles. It's looking for the common category titles. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list. So don't worry if you have work experience instead of career history or professional experience, you're fine. You're fine. These are just examples. Just don't get, you know, overly fancy and give people what they're not expecting to see. For, you know, I'm as I'm taking a look at this, yeah, I mean, these are, I can't think of any others. If this, you know, if you have a CV because you're a professor, you know, lawyer, something like that, you might have other titles of publications or classes taught, you know, whatever. But again, no matter what the section that you're using, use the common name, the common word, the semantic type of titles that everybody would be looking for, and you'll be good. Excuse me. This one is so important. This one is the biggest rule that people break because they don't know it's a rule. Okay. So if you've got any of these tonight, don't even wait till tomorrow. Wait until I'm done, but don't wait much after that to fix this. No boxes. I can't say that enough. No boxes, no boxes. So what is a box? What is a box? A text box is a box. Let's see, I'm not in the formatting. I would actually show you what a text box looks like, but I'm not in the formatting part of this. But if you go into Word and you click on Insert, a bunch of options that you could, you know, pictures, graphs, et cetera, et cetera. One of them will be a text box. If you click on that, that's one of the boxes that you can then put extra information in. It's kind of like a call out box. ATS can't get through to a box. Okay, that is a force field. That is a force field, even if you make the lines of that text box invisible. It's the formatting, the programming of that text box. Okay, so it's a force field, no boxes, so no text box. Tables. Again, even if you make the lines, the grids of the table invisible, ATS is not getting in there. Problem with this one, and I see this on, well over 50% of the resumes that come across. Patty, quick question.
We have 2 questions in the chat. Do you want me to hold off or do you want to answer them?
Let me answer them now, but then I'm going to get back to the table section.
Okay.
So yes, questions.
I just wanted to ask you this. One question is, how do you do resumes when using an internal company HR system? We literally have to put our resume in the system and not in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. That's the first question.
Okay, well, if they're giving you a system to work with, then it should be fine. So then that I'm assuming you mean you're just uploading all your typing in your information or copying and pasting it into their system. If that's the case, that's perfectly fine. They're not looking for, they're basically giving you what you need to do for the ATS, unless I'm misunderstanding. Does that, Patty?
No, the patron
like...
just responded that is correct.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Oh, I like that one. That was nice and easy. All right, next question.
And then the second question is, does removing metadata from a Word doc before uploading make it unreadable by ATS?
Okay. I don't know what metadata is. I mean, I've heard it before, but honestly, that's not something I work with. Can I get a little bit of an explanation?
Well, I'm going to wait to hear back from this patron what her definition is. From a librarian perspective, metadata is data about data. So it would be data about the doc itself. I think word count,
which isn't on the resume.
About the document, details about the item, about the format.
It's kind of what I'm thinking too, but I honestly can't think of where that would actually come into play with a resume, which is why I'm a little confused. So if I can just get more information, I'm happy to tackle that question. Until that information, oh, I see something being typed here.
Metadata reveals word count, history of changes that have been made, etc.
Oh, no, don't you, that's not a factor. That's a non-factor. And as a matter of fact, because the employer sees your resume, if they do see your resume, it's going to be in their system. I'm not even sure if they would have access to that or not. The one thing I will tell you is this, and this is not for ATS, it's for the employer, but I wouldn't have thought about this if you hadn't asked this question. Do go in and check who is the owner or the author of your Word document. A lot of times when a client will send me their resume, I'll take a look at that. And it's like, oh, I saw you worked with Lee Hecht Harrison last. Or, oh, I saw you worked with, some other resume company. And they're like, wait a minute, how did you know? Like, because they made themselves the owner of your resume, which that stinks. I don't like that because they're kind of using your resume to advertise themselves. So go into that. What is it? It's the file and then properties, if I remember. And then look at the author and just make sure it's your name. But other than that, as far as ATS, that information is not going to impact the ATS whatsoever.
Okay, we have one more question, and I think if you want to address it, and then we're just going to ask, because I think it's wonderful. And I remember last week you really received an inflow, a huge inflow of questions. So unless someone plans to leave the program a little earlier and needs to have your question addressed right then and there, we're going to hold off on the questions until you've wrapped up on the content. But this
Yeah,
one,
but
if you
keep
could address
typing
this
them.
one,
Keep typing them though. Yeah, and
it
we'll
is.
get and we'll do this one.
It is, should email and LinkedIn be live links on the resume?
Yes, yes, as a matter of fact, when I do resume, the email and the LinkedIn profile are live links. And I'm wondering if I can show, if we have time, I'll show you how I do this. But if you actually know, on your, I'm actually going to figure this out on my mouse. If you highlight with your cursor, highlight your LinkedIn profile, the URL, and then you're going to right click on your mouse. It drops down, it brings down a drop down box of choices, open link, delete link also, but click on edit link. Edit link is going to bring up another box where you can double check that you put the right link in there in the first place, but then it's also going to show I want to say it's text to display. From there, you can actually shorten. So what I do in that box, I'll type in LinkedIn and then colon, space, and then the person's name. And now that's obviously, that only works if you've actually updated your LinkedIn URL, but do that if you haven't. So yeah, so for mine on my resume, and yes, I do have a resume that I update frequently as I do new things. So I go in and on my resume, it looks like LinkedIn colon Lauren Milligan. And then that way people know they can either live link directly to it, or they know if they just search for Lauren Milligan in LinkedIn, that's mine. Now, fortunately, I got in LinkedIn early enough where I actually got Lauren Milligan. Now people are having to do like maybe a symbol or a couple numbers or whatever that one is. So if I had Lauren Milligan 128, that's what I would put in there so that to make sure that people are clicking on the right profile and not somebody else's. Okay, but that's also a way that you can shorten that LinkedIn profile a little bit, because if you type the whole thing, www.linkedin.com/in/Lauren Milligan, that's really long, and there's a good chance that's going to flow onto another line, wasting space. Instead, again, just edit a little bit so it's LinkedIn and then your name. All right. So we'll get back to this. Now, I think I was on tables. Right. I was on tables because so many resumes that I see, there will be, the contact information and then hopefully a summary, sometimes an objective, but we bashed that last week. And then underneath that, there's going to be a section called, core competencies, or how, and maybe it's not even named, but it will be generally a table of keywords that are critical to the candidate and to the job, right? And the thinking is, well, someone just glancing at the resume, they want to see these keywords, so I'm going to put them right here. First of all, I'm not a big fan of that anyway. We talked about that last week. I like the keywords throughout the resume instead of, taking up extra unnecessary room. But here's the problem. More often than not, those keywords are in a table. That means they're not getting seen in the first place. So you've put your keywords in a format where it can't be read, and you've taken up extra lines that have pushed your experience down, 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 down onto the next page. That's just whammies all over the place. So if you are going to use that, if you insist, if you really want that section, that's fine. But don't put it in a table. Columns is the iffy one because for the most part, ATS is fine with columns because it's open formatting. Table is all closed formatting. Columns are open, so I think columns are okay. I'm still kind of iffy on that. I wouldn't do that. If I really wanted this section on my resume, what I would do is just tab, 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 and then write the word and then tab and then write. So I would create columns, but I wouldn't do it with formatting. I wouldn't do it with tables or columns. It would just be tabbed over. Okay. So think about that. If you've got one of those sections and you want that section, no table, no columns. Okay. Because it could be the reason why those words are never going to get seen in the first place. Now, that kind of leads me into columns. There is a resume format that's beautiful. It's modern. It's really neat to look at. For resume writers, it's completely aggravating because it's not lined up perfectly. However, it's called the 2-column format. I don't have an example here, but if anyone wants to take a look, just write this down. You can look it up later. Write down 2-column resume format. It's one of those that a lot of people in like web design, graphic design, maybe more creative type of industries, they use this a lot. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, a 2-column format, it is never, ever going to work with ATS because the information is not where it's expected to be. It's not full lines. It's going to be much more condensed, and it just is never, ever the right choice for ATS. So yeah, if you really love a 2-column format, and like I said, they actually are quite attractive. But if you're going to use that format, make sure that you're only using that for the version that you hand in, actually literally like hand over in person at an interview or networking. Never ever upload into an ATS because it's just not going to work for you. And then the next box that I have here, and this is always kind of a kicker. And boy, I'll tell you, I've had people come to me saying, I'm not getting any hits on my resume. No problem. Let me take a look at it. Let's see what we're working with. It will be a beautifully written resume. It'll have great keywords, etc. The only thing wrong with it is the fact that they included a page border. A page border is one big field. Nothing's getting through. And by the way, I will tell you this. In those situations, I have told those people, I'm not doing anything with your resume. Remove the page border. Come back to me in 2 or 3 weeks. If you're still not getting results, but I have a feeling like your results are going to pick up. So I don't remember actually anyone coming back to me saying, nope, that wasn't it. So, I know a good resume when I see it, and I don't have to convince someone they don't have a good resume if it's just a matter of let's fix this formatting, because other than that, I think you're going to be fine. But yeah, page border, they look so elegant, don't they? You can do some shading with them or whatever. It's really eye-catching, and it could be the number one reason why you're not getting any calls. Now, this next one is one of those things where I said some other career coaches out there are saying, don't do this. And I'm going to say, actually, no, I think that's okay. This falls into that category. Horizontal lines. You can use horizontal lines, not because it's not all 4 walls. Okay. It's one line. You can use horizontal lines to delineate between like the contact information and the summary, and then the summary, and then the work experience, and then the work experience and the education. And so between sections, you can use a horizontal line. That's fine. And it doesn't matter if you inputted that with the line, where they have you like stretch out the line or through borders and shading. Any kind of line is okay, but make sure that the content either above or below it isn't touching that line. Okay, you want space in between, so you want to make sure that that line is small enough where it's an obvious break, but it's not actually impacting the text below or above. Oh, and then this next one, to and from dates. So your to and from dates are always going over into the right margin. Some people have them on the left. There's a problem both for ATS and for the human reader. So if you've got your to and from dates by the left margin, I know this is always backwards as I'm looking at a screen here as I'm picking it, but if you have the to and the from dates in the left margin, normally where your position would be or the employer, this is a problem for the ATS because the ATS is programmed to look at it in the right margin. But then also once it gets through the human, here's the thing, when we humans read English, I know not every language is like this, but in English, we read left to right, which means we also remember left to right. So when someone's skimming your resume and they're going left to right, they are mostly remembering the title or the employer. The to and from dates, which quite frankly sometimes is the least important piece of data on your entire resume, put that over in the right so that they can just glance at it and say, okay, I see the dates, but I don't need to absorb and digest those dates. If you have it in the left side, there's a really good chance that your to and from dates are going to be what they remember most about you. And that's so unnecessary. Okay, so for both the ATS and the human reader, to and from dates always in the right margin. A couple other formatting rules here. And this is another good one because this is something that it used to be you had to put your title and then the company and then the to and from dates all on one line and then type out the bullets. Well, now title, company, and then the to and from dates can all go on one line. Again, I love lines. I love space. I want to save as much space, conserve it as much space as possible so I can use those lines to create an extra really awesome bullet that includes keywords and an accomplishment, uh, something that can actually make an impact. So you can put all of that on one line and you can underline them. You can, well, as I'll say, you can bold them, italicize, all of those are fine. Next, after that, leave off images, graphs, charts, tables like we talked. Don't call out sections. I know I've seen a lot of resumes where normally where I'll see this is in a salesperson's resume, where if they want to create a graph of their year over year sales, and so it's just showing like up, 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 up. Oh, that's awesome. That it looks great, but ATS doesn't know what to do with that, and there's a good chance it's going to get hung up on that and isn't going to actually do any of the parsing of the good words that you have. So no, none of that additional stuff. Logos is another one. A lot of people, and I see this on LinkedIn. It's fine on LinkedIn. But people will then bring logos of the companies that they worked for and insert them into the resume. Don't do that. First and foremost, because it may not work for the ATS. Second of all, because it's not your intellectual property, and you might have some employers get really, really angry if you do that. So that's a little kind of side note. Bullets. The circle, I think they're called radio buttons. The radio button circles are fine. Likewise, if you use the sub bullets, the open radio buttons, just fine. Okay. Squares and then open squares, just fine. That's not going to get anything kicked out. It used to be that ATS didn't, I don't even understand how this is possible, but ATS didn't even want you to use bullets on the resume. Now bullets are just fine. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Bold print, no problem. capitalized, italicized are fine. I emphasize this because I actually know there is another career coach. This person is absolutely wonderful. However, this information is a little outdated. I've heard this person say, don't put any bold print, don't use italics, any of that. And that's okay. That's not going to trip you up whatsoever anymore. But this one will, no accents. So resume, as you see on the screen, the American version of resume, not the European version of resume. I have written many resumes for chefs. And the word that I always have to keep this in mind with is entree. A lot of times entree will have the European accents, not on my resumes. So we use the American version, no accents. So if you do have any of those accents, including, there was another example that I wanted to say. I can't remember what it is now, but if you have an accent in your name, that's fine, because your name isn't going to be a keyword that they look for. So that's okay in your name. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there was another word. There's another fairly common word that has accents that in your resume you don't, but I don't remember the particular word. So just a unilateral rule: don't use accents in words in the body of the resume. Okay, now I want to show you how people, and this kind of fun thing, it's going to be a little funny, but it's actually true. People have tried this. So I'm going to show you how people try to trick the system. Okay. I can barely even say that with a straight face, because here's the thing: you're not going to trick the system. You're not going to trick the human readers or the ATS, so don't even try it. But let's say that I was going to apply for a position where I had to, work with board of directors, have some project management experience in my background. I don't do either, at least not consistently as part of my job. I, write resumes for people who are on boards, but I don't work with a board of directors per se. So this would be my summary. Let's say that I want to try to, but this job, it just looks so good, and I know that if I get it, I can, deal with these other things that I'll easily catch up, or I'll learn it online later, whatever. I just need to get in for this job. Here's my summary. Traditional for me, this is my summary. And this could happen in any part of the resume, not the summary, but this is what I've chosen. Here's how people try to trick the system. Exact same summary. But people will put those extra keywords that they don't have into their resume, and then what do? They make that font white. So then when you're just looking at this resume, you don't see those. So it's not going to stand out as a problem, but the ATS will recognize those. So if I was applying by ATS, and project management and board of directors were two of the keywords, well, guess what? With this, I may get through. But then, which, by the way, there are so many other factors involved in ATS that just doing that is not going to work anyway. Okay, but just, on the surface, this is what people tried to do. So I could try to sneak in some keywords this way, but again, so let's say I get through. The human reader, we cannot forget about the human reader. They're going to look at this and say, wait a minute, how did this person get past the ATS? I'm not seeing any of the experience that we started to see. Well, I'll tell you something. What that person is going to do, if they have time, if they, want to kind of say, oh, I'm going to catch this girl and let her know I know what she's doing, they're going to go back to my original resume as a Word document, and they're going to take their mouse and they're going to highlight my entire resume, and they're going to change the font. They'll change the font all to black so that all those words that I was hiding in it is suddenly going to appear. And then that recruiter or employer is going to call me, and she's going to say, you know what, we received your resume. Unfortunately, you will not be moving along in our recruiting process. And I just wanted to let you know you're not invited to apply with us ever again. So that is a great way to get blacklisted. I'll say this. I don't know if any of my clients have ever done this. However, I've had a handful of people ask me about it. And in no way, shape, or form would I ever encourage anyone to take this route. So please don't do it. It's just going to end up in embarrassment and you'll be blacklisted. And the world is big, but the world of employment is small. So word of that scammy stuff gets around. Okay, so now here's a way to check your keywords. I'm keeping my eye on a clock here, but we'll go through this. One of the tools that you can use if you want to find the keywords from a job ad. Now, first of all, hopefully it's a well-written job ad. And even if it isn't, you look up a bunch of different job leads and kind of put them all together. So I'll have people say, well, how do I know which of these words are actual keywords? Here's one tool that you can use. I'm going to show you another one too, but you can actually make a word cloud. Here are 3 programs: Wordle, 2Cloud, and Tag Crowd. I don't use Tag Crowd. Someone else said they really like that one, so I haven't tried that one. Wordle is the one I generally use. But what you would do when you go into any of these, there'll be a box that you can text, that you can paste text in, and it will create a word cloud for you. This is significant because words that show up often or seem to be more significant are going to show up different colors or larger or whatever. Now, I have made one for you. So on this next screen, you can look. All right, so here's a job. I took a job, just cut a job off I think off of LinkedIn, and it was for instructional design through the University of Illinois. And I made a word cloud through Wordle, typed it in, and the cool thing about word clouds is they are programmed to leave out the insignificant words. So you're not going to see the, yeah, I don't know. You're actually taking a look at this. You can see. So the most important words that you want to make sure that are that occur a bunch of times in your resume are the larger ones. So programs, online, training, development, design, initiatives, learning, instructional, support. So those are that those are going to be the words that are most important to the employer. Word cloud. And this is only for you. You're not going to post this anywhere. All you're going to do with this then is say, okay, I need to make sure that my resume and my cover letter include these words. LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile can include these words. That's how you're going to use this. I suppose if you wanted to, I, I, I just, I don't think you'd use it any other way. So once you get that word cloud and you get the words, then you can delete it. Here is, I like the transition I chose. There are some programs out there that serve as ATS programs. Now, when I say that, keep in mind this ATS and the next one I'll show you, they're not hooked up to any employer. So this is not, it's reliable information, but it's always imperfect information because this is a website that you can go to, excuse me, that is not working in conjunction with any employers that you want to apply to. Okay, but here's what it looks like. So this first one, the website is here at the bottom of the screen, theprofessional.me. This one is the one that I use most often. There's another one that I'll show you, but this is the one that I use the most often. And what you do when you go to theprofessional.me, it's a website, scroll down on the homepage. The top of the homepage looks really weird and like it was designed in 1988, but scroll down till you see this little box. What you do is cut and paste your resume, and then you cut and paste the job ad, and then you're going to click on submit. By the way, this is going to ask you if you want to set up an account. You don't have to. I don't. I've never set up an account. I don't get spam from them. I'm not prompted to pay anything for the service. So for now, with absolutely no relationship between this website and myself, it works great for me. So what I do, like I said, copy the resume and then copy the job ad, and then I click submit. I wasn't able, the results page got all wonky, so I didn't I didn't copy that on here, but if you do this, it will show you the results. It will show you how many of the words from the job ad, first of all, it pulls out what it believes are the right words from the job ad. And then it shows which ones you matched and which ones you missed. Okay, so, and then you can go back and say, okay, so I need to include these words somewhere in my resume. Next one that I've got to show you, I used to use this one much more. Taking a look at the bottom of the screen, the website is jobscan.co. That is not a typo. The extension is .co, not .com. But when you get to JobScan, you'll see this little robot guy. Same thing. You're going to paste your resume, paste the job description. Really quick instructional thing here. Don't mess those boxes up because each one is programmed to read the content in there differently. So if you post the job ad and the resume in the wrong boxes, your results are going to get all messed up, I promise you. And I'm speaking from experience. So you post your content here, then you're going to click on scan at the bottom here. And then what you are going to get, your results. Oops, no. Stay here. Get back here, birdie. There we go. Oh, I thought it was kind of cute. Okay, so your results here, and again, just for spatial reasons, I didn't click on the whole thing, but the most important thing is that match rate, that percentage. Most companies will only, they want to, by keywords alone, they're mostly going to focus on candidates who get 80% and higher. I say 80% because not too many, the best qualified candidates, no one's going to have a 100% match. It just isn't going to happen. Now, with JobScan, you could actually get a really, 94, 95. I actually got a 100 before for one of my clients. I turned around, I'm like, oh, I got to celebrate. I looked around like no one else cares, but it was a cool night. So you want to try to get the highest match rate. Now, if you look below, if you look at this tab below from what I printed up, hard skills, soft skills, other keywords. I wasn't able to put this on the screen, but below this, the hard skills, it's going to tell you, here are the skills, here's how many times it was mentioned in the resume. So it's a really good tool for you to say, I need more of these keywords and I've got enough of this one. But again, keeping in mind, JobScan and the Professional Me, they are not the official ATS. It's a guide, okay? All right, so to recap, and then we'll get to questions. Remember, for two readers, the ATS and that human reader. Always be connecting. Make the network so much that everyone just says, just upload your resume. Once I see it come through, we'll get you in for an interview. Best scenario possible, right? Remember simple formatting and simple language. Research multiple sources for keywords. Now, again, don't just because an employer puts out a poorly written job ad doesn't mean that they're not going to be looking for all the right keywords. The job ad doesn't always reflect what the ATS is looking for. So that's why it's your job to really know what the keywords are for your industry, for your role, for your level of expertise, and make sure to put in those keywords generously. And then using the tech tools, the resume against the job lead, whether it's the Professional Me, a word cloud, JobScan, whatever, but using those tech tools is much better than just eye by eye comparison. Oh, right. And then 2020, but we still have to talk about this. Proofread. I still get resumes across my desk with typos. Sometimes they're autocorrect zingers. They thought there meant there. But there are some, boy, the human is definitely the one who mistyped this in. And so no, typo, I can't believe it's 2020. We're still talking about typos, but we are, so proofread. I think anything else? Okay, so that's what I've got. Here's all my contact information. So let's switch over and take some questions. There we go. All right, so let me go into all right, so here's one. Oh, okay, so that's it. Should email and LinkedIn be live links on the resume? We covered that one. Yes. Yes, I do. I do think so. And by the way, if you don't, it's not going to be a reason that you're kicked out. Okay. So don't think, oh my God, I just sent one in and I didn't make my email live link. That's fine. You're okay. But if you can do it, you might as well. But like I said, it's not going to be a big trip up if you don't. Patty, do you want to go through the questions and read them, or do you want me to? Doesn't matter to
You know
me.
what, you are Mel. I think we are, let's see here. We got the bullets, including a live link to LinkedIn. Metadata, we got one new one. What was the minimum percentage match rate that employers want?
Honestly, I don't know an official number for that. It really depends on what kind of, what they're getting, what the results are from the pool that they received. If they have to, kind of go lower and lower because they didn't get a lot of candidates or, responses or whatever. So I don't really have a number for that. I'm sorry to say. And you know what, Patty, I realized, because we took some questions and everything, I went over a little bit long. Do we have time for me to go over Google Tools?
I think we absolutely do. We don't have another program pressing, so the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Okay. So here's, and keep the questions coming because I don't
We
have
have a
like a
couple
dinner
more on
date.
Q&A. Do you want to hold off on we have two that just came in on Q&A. Do you want to address those now or wait until after Google Tools?
Let's do them now, but I'm
Okay.
hoping that everybody on doesn't mind staying a couple minutes after because I've got some cool Google tools for us to use. So, but
Okay,
yeah,
so
questions.
one is, this is just a formatting question, but how do you put to/from in the margin?
Oh, okay. So you know what, that probably what I meant by that is the to and from dates. So what I do, and by the way, I don't use months. I don't use months, unless unless you're just a recent college grad, really entry level. Employers don't care about months, especially if you're filling out an application. That's where you're going to be putting the more details. So on your resume, over to the right margin, I'll tab as much over as I can, and I'll put 2009 to present, or 2009 to 2011, whatever it is. But here's what I do, and this is kind of important. If you're going to put the first year, so 2009 space and then a dash or hyphen, and then another space and then the end date, whether it's present or a year. But here's what happens when you hit enter, that hyphen becomes an elongated line. So if you're going to use that elongated line in one, make sure this is a formatting. This is more for the human, who's going to be really persnickety about typos. If you have that elongated hyphen because you hit enter right after the first one, make sure that every single one does. And I always do. I hit enter so that all of them are nice and long, because if my clients go back and update their resume, chances are they're going to do that without realizing it. And so I'd rather format the resume so that it's going to work to what they're most
I'm
likely
glad you're
going to
bringing
do.
this up because it's a small issue to some and a large issue with others, but in the essence of proofing, when you're talking about the to and the from, and this goes hand in hand with a consistency through the resume, that it's a space, hyphen, space, and then other text that follows, it becomes what's called an M dash, an EM, an M dash. And
Yes,
that's what
yes.
the character is called. And so if you're going to use that all the way through. And if you're going to use a hyphen, and that's your choice, use the hyphen all the way through. And if you're going to use the words TO,
Yes,
1999
right.
to 2003, use that all the way through. But make sure whatever it is, it's consistent all the way through. Because otherwise, if something happens to humanize in reading it, it becomes very wonky. In the same way that you just do a tab, tab, tab over to make sure that your twos and your froms lined up. Do not use the spacing, the space bar, thinking it's going to do the same thing, because
Right.
it's not, and it's going to look real jerky when it's printed out and it's received in any format. So those are just some small things, but they really add up, showing that you've given attention to your resume
It's the
and that you
details.
are
Yeah.
consistent. Same way, if you're going to use periods all the way through, use them, but don't use them on some lines and not use them for others. So
And
just make a decision to go one way or the other.
the period was the one just gonna mention too, because that's the one of the very first things I do when someone sends their resume to me. that's one of the first things I look at. I scan every single bullet to see, is there a period after every single one or no bullet. I always use bullets. It just kind of, it's like chalkboard, nails down a chalkboard if there are no bullets, but it's even worse if there's only some. Okay, so just make sure that one is. And to go back, let me show you what I do just to make sure, as a double check, when I do the tabs over, not the spaces. Thank you for saying that. Not, don't hit the space bar. But when you're using the tabs to make sure that your margins line up, I actually use a piece. This is a red light ticket that I got from Oakbrook Terrace a couple of weeks ago. I know, but anyway, $100 right there. But I'll take a piece of paper and I'll actually put it along the line, like an actual physical piece of paper, just to make sure, okay, all of my margins are lined up exactly where they need to be. Even though technically they will be if I've done the tabbing correctly, but I just want to double check it just that much because I don't want that to be even one space off.
You know what? It's like lining up the buttons on your shirt wrong. Once it's off and somebody reads it, you think it's close, like with painting, but close isn't. No, what is it the carpenters use? Measure twice.
Measure twice, cut
Measure
once.
twice, cut once. That's
Yep,
how it works. So
absolutely.
let's see. More questions have come in. In honors and award, is honors and awards an acceptable subhead? I don't see it on the list.
Okay, so it depends. My famous answer, it depends, but let me explain that. Generally, what I prefer to do is mention the award underneath as a bullet, underneath the employer where you received it. However, sometimes those awards and honorable mention, whatever it is, community recognition, it could happen from maybe a volunteer position or whatever. So do I like it? How do I want to say this? A lot of awards that are out there, top salesperson or, president's club or whatever, they're not really going to get you as much mileage as you would hope they would, which is why I prefer to put them underneath that bullet, because when someone is reading through that bullet, through that experience, that, they're going to read a couple bullets and then they're going to see, oh, reached president club status 2018, 2019, 2020 or whatever. That just kind of helps to elevate that information that they just read. Now, if you put it in a different section, I understand it's more of a call out, it's going to get more attention or whatever, but it's not connected at that point in time to any of the actual experience that they're reading about. I think it actually takes away a little bit of the impact. That's my own personal preference. If I had someone say, no, I don't want these in these bullets, I want this in its own section, I'd be like, cool, here's how we're going to do it. And quite frankly, honors and awards, however, semantically, that's fine. That's perfectly fine for the section header. No problem there. I personally do like it in the actual bullets of the employer.
Well, now we are getting more questions in. So your options are either to address these questions now or table them to talk about some Google tools.
I wish I knew what everyone else wanted to do, because if everyone's like, wait a minute, I've got a hard stop at 8:05 or so, then I'd rather get into the Google tools. What are you thinking?
You know what? If anyone has an issue with the stop, we're approaching 8 o'clock. So Lauren's been going for a good 90 minutes. But if anyone has,
you can't shut me up.
I don't want to take out that vaudeville hook. I don't. I think we're all learning quite a bit, but if anyone has an issue with time of a question that needs to be answered in the now, can you please put it in the chat so we address it? Otherwise, I'm going to continue. Okay, I get a let's keep going from someone.
All right.
And someone else says Google Tools, my vote. So
we need a tiebreaker.
No, like let's keep going with the topics.
Great. Okay.
That's how I'm interpreting it. If I'm interpreting it wrong to this patron, please let me know. But otherwise, let's keep going means keep going. And then, but I do want to make sure that questions get answered. So let's talk Google Tools for a little while.
Okay, Google Tools. So let me see if I can go back to sharing my screen, and hopefully I pulled these up correctly. Oh, that's not the screen I want though. Let's see. I'm going to try this again. New share. Cool. Okay, so here are, let me see. Now I can't determine. And share. All right. Oh, this little chat thing from Zoom is going to be in my way. Okay, so here are the Google tools that I have for you. The first one is Google Maps. Everyone knows Google Maps, right? It's where you can go and look at what your house looked like on that day, saying, oh my God, why did Google have to drive past my house that day? I did this just the other day. Oh, and there's my there's my home address. I don't know how to take that off. But so, well, actually, you know what, let's do this. So if I was looking for an employer, there we go. All right, so and let's say I want to work at an accountant's office. Okay. So I live in Warrenville and I want to work at an accountant's office. So I typed in my address here and then I clicked on nearby. Oh, there's the ugly picture of my house. It really is cute. It was a bad day. My house was having a bad hair day. So what I did to get here, clicked on nearby. Okay. And that's how this box pops up. Let's say I want to work at an accountant's office. So I'm going to type in, let's see, accountant, and I'm going to click search and look what happens. Come on. Ah, there we go. Okay. So this is going to give me a ton of accountant's offices close to my house. So we've got this one. Does it actually say? Sometimes they'll actually say like, ooh, half a mile from you or whatever. But I know these accountants, I can tell you they are all like in Warrenville or very nearby. So this is how you can create your employment database, your target market database. You know, whether it's an accountant, whether it's a clothing store, whether it's a physical therapist, you know, whatever, by pulling up in maps, typing in your address, going to nearby, and then putting in the type of firm, company, whatever, nonprofit that you want to work for, this becomes your database and it's all right here. And the cool thing is, let's say you want to say, let's see, HSM and Associates. And what do I have here? Their website. So with one click, you can go to their website, learn about them, get their contact information. Maybe they've got an employment portal on their site, whatever, but use this to create your target market list. And it just makes it so easy. I mean, how many times you drive, there it is. Okay. Oh, that's kind of cute. How many times have you driven past an industrial park? You know, whether they're the really, you know, tall, like 10-story, you know, buildings or whatever, and you look in there and you think, oh my gosh, there's probably like 70 employers in that one building. How on, you know, maybe in this building there could be the employer that I want to work for. Well, unless you pull over, I mean, this is, you know, the 1990s version of this, you would drive, and I actually did, I've done this, by the way, so I know what I'm talking about here. You park and you go in and you see that directory that's at the front, and then you just start writing companies down, and then you go back home and you know, look them up in the phone book or whatever. That's old school. Well, now just use Google Maps, and it gives you, you know, you can find so much so quickly, but you can also find employers, potential employers that are right in your own neighborhood or in your town. So makes it nice and simple. And then you don't have to go in, you know, to find out only one of those 70 companies in this industrial park is one you're interested in, because it's going to come up in Google. All right, so that's Google Maps. Close that out. The next one is Google Alerts. Okay, and by the way, I'm getting these just going to a Google page and typing in Google Maps, Google Alerts. Alerts are really cool. If you don't know what they are, it's worth looking at this. And if anyone does use these, put it in the chat, because I'd be really curious to know if someone is doing this right now. Alerts, you can create an alert, and then anytime that particular phrase comes up, you're going to get an email from Google with a link to that story. So, well, you can take a look here. I have 15. I have 15 alerts. I get a lot of email from Google. So call for presentations, because I'm a speaker, organizations will put out what's called a call for presentations or call for speakers, and then a little bit of, you know, synopsis of what they're looking for and the application page. So I have those, and I will read through and say, oh, that sounds like a great, you know, trade show or, you know, organization, whatever. Maybe they want a career related workshop. and then I'll fill it out. But that's how I find out about this. That's how I find out about a lot of the speaking gigs that I get. And then, of course, I have an alert for my name since I do appear in a lot of different articles, and the people who write these articles aren't always going to tell me when they're coming out. I also get to learn a lot about the other Lauren Milligans of the world. I have this running thing on Facebook. Every couple months, I'll say, "Here's what the other Lauren Milligans of the world are doing," and they're usually much more impressive than I am. There are a couple of them who are troublemakers. Oh my gosh. I pulled out my battery and didn't realize it before. All right. So, and other alerts like that. But anytime you have, um, let's see, companies that you want to work for, or any industry news, anything like that, that is that would be an alert that you put so that you can stay up to date with the topic, and then you could be talking about these topics. Hang on, let me plug in. There we go. Ugh, sorry about that. So if you're an accountant, you could have, accounting, you could have different, gap, or some of the other accounting, that's an insurance term, not accounting, whatever it is. You could have, what is that called when an employee is caught stealing money from a company? It's an E word. I don't remember what
Embezzlement.
it is. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so maybe you thank you. I was thinking extortion. I knew that wasn't right. But maybe embezzlement would be putting in, a word, because then you could actually talk about in an interview. Well, I know that, here are some, here's how some companies got in trouble before. Here are some checks and balances that I have instituted with my employers so that we know that that's not going to happen. Whatever it is, but keep it. It's just a good way to keep in touch with the type of conversations that are happening specific to your industry or to your position. The next Google tool that I want to show you, let me close this one out, is Google News. So let's say that you are going to, let's say that you got an interview with Motorola. Congratulations. Now, if you just did a Google search for Motorola, like the first 20, 30 pages are going to be information that's from Motorola's website, stuff that they personally put out. And that's fine. You want to look there. You want to look on the website, obviously. However, you also want to read stories that were put out by other sources so that you get more of kind of a well-balanced view, right? So let's do this. Let's say that Motorola, am I spelling that right? Motorola. Yes, I am. And I'm going to click enter, and then here we go. Okay, so Fitch ratings. They rate financial ratings, etc., and viability of companies. So, excuse me, Fitch affirms Motorola Solutions, a BBB. I don't know what any of the rest of those words mean, but I'm guessing that's probably pretty good news for Motorola. The Motorola Razr, I heard they're bringing back the Razr. Can't believe it, but they are. But good news, may end up dwarfing Samsung's extremely popular cell phone. Again, good news. So if you're going into an interview with Motorola, you can say, by the way, I happened to see this article about how, the comeback of the Razr is, going heads and shoulders above Samsung Galaxy. That's really cool. And they'll be like, hey, this is a person who's actually done some research on the company. Whatever it is. Let's say here, let's do another one with a tiny company. All right, mine. I don't think I've looked up Resume Day for a while. This isn't something I do every day, I promise. But let's say that you're interviewing with Resume Day. Let's see what things you may find. All right, Google, you don't have to take that long. All right. Let's see. Your most marketable skills may be the ones you don't use. Okay, so these are articles and interviews. Remember how I said I put up the alerts because I don't always hear when I'm going to be in, when an article that I quoted is going to be featured or whatever. Well, this is how I can find out. So if someone was interviewing with my company with Resume Day and they said, oh, by the way, I saw this video, when you were on WGN, it was great. I really liked your advice on this. I'd be like, oh, I am flattered. I love that. And I read some of your articles and I say, this is a person who really did their homework. That's fantastic. So this is how you can stay in the chatter and you know the conversations that are going on with these companies, but your only source isn't that company's website, because it shouldn't be. Okay, you should be going to other sources, and this is where you find those sources. Those are my Google tools. Let's see. Now I want to read these other articles that I that I appeared in. Okay, so those are those. Let me stop sharing. There we go. Okay. So any new questions on that or on anything?
Let's go from here. We'll start here. We have one patron that says he does the alerts for phrases. It's a great way to see if your name is used as well, if you're a writer, etc. Another question before that, does the body of the resume need to be aligned to the left or justified?
Oh, okay. So yeah, this is one of the, that's another, it's kind of a choice. It's kind of a design choice. I love justified. It's, you know, it's nice, it's organized, it's clean. However, what I don't like about justified, justification and margins, is that if someone does that and they don't have, you know, it could make one word stretch too far where there's too much of a gap. And that's really, really annoying to me. So more often than not, I do left rather than justified, because I don't like those gaps. But if I do justified and I see that everything is still laid out nicely, then I do that. I don't have a problem with it. Either way, that's more of a design choice than anything that's going to impact, you know, just make sure that there aren't those long gaps, because they had to kind of make up for the empty spaces.
Can you say something about social media best practice?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was another topic. Social media best practice. Um, Stay away from politics. Um, if your grandparent, don't talk so much about the kids temporarily. I'm not saying forever, just in terms of your job search. um One of the follow okay Post articles that are about the, even if no one's liking or sharing, it doesn't matter. You know, post articles regarding your industry and say, hey, here, you know, for, you know, for my friends who are also in accounting, here's a really interesting article on this, you know, whatever it is. But show that you're, use social media to show that you are part of that conversation. Follow the companies that you want to work for, because they're going to be putting a lot of companies now primarily use social media because they want to connect with people who already love the brand. So following those companies not only keeps you, you know, lets you know what they're talking about, but you may pick up on an extra job lead or two that you wouldn't have found any other way. So keep things neutral. um, you know, don't do the, I'm gonna cut open my brain and everybody is gonna know every single thing I think. um, Especially about the hot, you know, the controversial stuff. Yeah, follow people. um, yeah, just you know, the funny thing about social media is everyone thinks, you know, oh, these kids, you know, millennials, which by the way, millennials are now in their 30s, so let's lay off millennials. But everyone thinks, oh, those young kids don't know what they're doing on social media. Well, guess what? Yes, they do, because they were raised with it. The people who are getting in trouble at work for things that they're posting online, baby boomers. so so let's not blame the, you know, the kids on that one. I'm Gen X. We're just the, we don't care. But so it's the baby boomers who really are having to kind of learn these lessons about, you know, what you can and cannot do. So again, stay away from controversial stuff. Post some professional stuff. Connect with the companies that you want to follow. Connect with specialists or experts. You know, people who are considered experts in your area. Kind of treat your social media almost like LinkedIn. And I don't say you have to forever. It can be a temporary thing. But consider this: most every company, before they invite you in for an interview, they're going to look at what you're posting on social media. I do. um, have I opted to not hire someone or not interview someone because of what I saw on social media? You bet. Absolutely. Many
And now,
times.
what if you don't find a social media presence for
Yeah.
someone? I mean, because
So it,
for two reasons, someone may opt not to have any sort of presence that way, or someone may have an account with one of the major tools and just keep everything really locked down
they
private. So you
shut it
need
down, right?
to set your profile.
So that's going to be, it depends by industry. It really depends by industry. So let's say that there is a social media component of the job that you're looking to get, or even a social component, meaning let's say that you're in sales or something. It's going to be really, really surprising for an employer and a little bit of a, what's going on here if they don't see anything. Okay, so that's why I say putting something out there. I have not even a client, a good friend of mine. He has two different. I know Facebook doesn't like when you do this, but Facebook is, they don't play by their rules, so why should you? But he has two different Facebook accounts. One that is more public for the employers, and he puts a lot about where things that are good things that's going on with his work, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's got his personal one. So to me, it's good to be on social media because it shows that you are familiar with those tools in the first place. Like I said, particularly if there's any kind of social media presence that you're going to need to have on the job, they want to see. Can she put a picture in with a post, whatever it is. So yeah, think about that. I mean, companies really are looking at your social media pages. So to me, it's better to find something good and intelligent and friendly, social. You don't want to lose that component, rather than controversial and rather than nothing at all. So
Okay, I also put something down as you were talking about Google News and Google
mm,
Maps. There's also some library tools, and I just put one in the chat called Reference USA to identify lists based on industry codes, geography for companies of interest. If we're your home library, call the reference desk. If not, call your home library, and we could show you remotely by tutorial how to create those lists of interest. If you're looking for all architectural firms, because that's your profession, within 8 miles of a certain area with X amount of employees and up. Those are the types of things that we can customize and help you with, and also identify if they're shared, some of the key individuals on the management roster, public or
and
private company.
is it Reference USA that comes out every year? There's a big one that comes out just about every year, and I'm not sure if it's Reference USA or something else.
Reference USA is an ongoing, it's a database that
Oh,
is
oh, okay.
it's ongoing. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
headquartered out of Omaha, and they market quite a bit to the public libraries.
well,
It's a
I just
pretty.
showed my age because I remember going to the library and it was a book. So the last time I looked for a job was before 2001 because that's when I started Resume Day. So yeah, but when I was doing it, it was a big book. It was a heavy book, like you could do workout with it.
And
But
now it's a heavy database.
well, yeah, and that's a nice thing. So because it's a couple, I didn't even think about that. Of course, now it's online. Duh.
Well, so
So
next year we'll be celebrating your 20-year anniversary with Resume Day.
next, this is, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
right.
question
Crazy.
here, how do you change a document from a DOCX to a DOC?
Hmm. Okay, that's super simple. I'm gonna see if I have to make sure that I don't have. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to open a Word doc because I've got something in there I was working on before, and I just don't want it to be public. But it's in the extension. So when you go to save your document, actually, let me do this. I am going to close, and then I'll restart Word. Good. I was afraid just make sure the only thing I closed down was Word. So let me start this up again and we'll do a blank document. Now I'm going to, oh, you know what? I am not in screen share. So let me go back to this and share. Okay. So now I've opened up a Word document. Let's say that this is going to be my resume. Here's how I do it. File, save as, and then we gotta go through all this. And then there we go. All right, so as you can see, this blank document, doc2 dot docx, okay? So let's say that I wanna save it as example, resume. We'll just say that. And then take a look here where it says word dot docx. I'm gonna click on that and just scroll down to this one that's doc and save. That's it. So just remember, show you this one more time. Go into the There we go into File, and this is what I clicked on, Save as Type. When you click on that, you've got all of your options right there. So if you wanted to make a document from a .doc to a .x, you would just click on this other one. That's how you do it, super simple. And I'm glad you asked that question, because it's one of those things where I know how to do it, but you don't always think like, oh yeah, it's not self-explanatory. That is a good question. Thank you. Stop share. That's what I want. Okay. Anything else?
So we have two questions. One is coming from individuals on YouTube. We have somebody that attended last week's session that said she worked really hard on last week's homework. Are there any comments to share about them? Could she email them and get some help?
Potentially. I've got my husband, he's the one who looked at my schedule for something. He's like, oh, you've got a really busy week, honey. I was like, oh no, I do. I don't know what I've got except for this. So, just email me and we'll talk about it.
Okay,
And it's
so
Lauren at resumeday.com.
you can either email me. My email is here in the chat. I'll put it in again, and then I will get that to Lauren, or you can go directly to her at Resume Day. And then we had another question. I think it could have been addressed at your session last week. Should a resume be just one page? And also, how far back do you go regarding to work history and or volunteering activities?
Okay, so this is the question.
Okay, so you have your professional answer. I go 15 years. That's it for me. I might go a little bit into 20, but I kind of right about there. I'm interested to know.
Well, as far as as far as how far back you go, I do generally like to say between 10 to 12, 12 to 15. It really depends on, just remember, you're not going to be counting on that experience that you were doing 15 years ago. That's not what's going to get you today's job. However, it is a good way to show your experience and why you earned the role that you have, the level that you have today. So I understand that. It doesn't mean that everyone, as you get older in the resume, the further down you go chronologically, make sure to be really editing those bullets, because you don't want the job that you had 15 years ago shouldn't have more bullets than the job that you have right now. Okay. That is just completely balanced in the opposite way. So that's where you want to really start editing and taking out, but it is good to show. The other reason that I like to go back sometimes is if you worked for an employer who is a Fortune 500 or is known for having an amazing training program, whatever it is. So there is some, and then of course, I've written plenty of resumes for people who, one that comes to mind, this woman was a teacher and then she left teaching, went into corporate. And then this was back when the recession hit. She wanted to get out of corporate and go back to teaching. She hadn't taught for about, somewhere between 15 and 20 years. So of course, we had to bring in that older information, made sure that the corporate information really focused on the teaching and training aspects of her job. But in the summary, I also wrote the summary to let the reader focus. This is a former teacher who has, updated all of her certifications, etc., comes in with additional experience in the corporate world, but really has that amazing career foundation in education, teaching and academics. So that is, that would be a reason why you'd want to go older. Now, the length of the resume. So I love a one-page resume. I love, like here, I never do that, but I love a one-page resume. But of course I write two-page resumes. Here's the only thing, just remember, most readers of the resume, and the human one, we're not talking ATS now. Most recruiters and employers who are reading your resume will have already decided whether or not they want to talk to you more by the time they get to the bottom of the first page of your resume. what that means is you have to really make sure that you aren't cluttering that first page with a lot of those extra sections and, maybe too condensed spacing or, whatever. You have to really put your best presentation on the first page of your resume. The second page, of course, it can exist, but to me, the second page is supplemental information. It's the earlier history. It's awards, and honors and all, if you're going to have that, education, all of that. Like the second page kind of has to justify its own existence because, again, to me, all interview decisions are made on the first page of a resume. Write your resume, write your 2-page resume, write your 3-page resume, as if no one is ever going to see anything but the first page. So that's my answer on that one. I should go to the chat because I can to see if there are any. Let's see. Sorry, I know you're probably like wanting to eat a power bar or something, and here I am like, Patty, back to you.
I'm just glad that I wasn't so far off in my predicted answer.
Oh, good. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no. As far as years go, no, you're, again, just remember the way that you worked, the work that you did, the tools that you used on the job 15 years ago, you're not going to be working the same way that you did 15 years ago, which is why that's, at that point in time, the emphasis has to come off.
I think we are caught up with all questions as we have them. We just have that one individual. If you could just put your email address in the chat.
Of course.
Or your website, because we don't have any slides up right now.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so Lauren at there's my email, and there's website, and if you type in here, I'll do this the way it's on my resume. That's what it says on my resume to get to my LinkedIn profile. Basically, if you type in Lauren Milligan on LinkedIn, you'll find me because I actually did join early enough where I could just snag my name. So.
All right, and I am also putting the next 2 sessions that we are doing in the series.
I'm excited about those. I am really excited about. I'm going to be an audience member taking notes the next 2 weeks.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm going to our folks on YouTube just to make sure that our programs are listed there, and then I also want to make sure that. Sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth in between chats.
Look at you managing all sorts of tech at the same time. I'm so impressed. I couldn't do it.
All right, so tell me, it's Lauren at resumeday.com, correct?
Yep.
Okay, I'm putting that in for I can't, so here's the new thing that I'm learning in Zoom. Unless it's a comment that I put in the chat, I cannot copy and paste it from a chat.
That's new information to me too.
There's kind of an interesting privacy that way. You can't capture someone else's text.
Okay.
So, and www.resumeday.com, because I'm putting that in here. www.resumeday.
Oh, and you know what? I typed it as to all panelists, not to. I don't know. Okay. Does that go to everybody? I don't know.
No, that would just go to me. So if you could do that again.
Yeah, let me do that. So I'm going to change. I know. I of course there we go. All panelists and attendees. Okay, so I'm giving you my.
Well, Lauren, I want to say thank you and how grateful we are for on the day of a storm, which we will always remember, 100-mile-hour winds, that you gave us 2 solid hours of some really great guidance and advice and specifics and tools. And for the 2 visits that you have made to our library, I would like to say, please, let's get on your dance card again in the very near future, because there are going to be more topics we're going to have to talk about and more individuals that we can work with to make sure that the job market is in motion.
Absolutely. Lots of, yeah. And, lots of topics out there, lots of questions swirling around. So I'm always happy to be a source for you.
And you know what? I will invite those that have attended, and I want to say thank you all too for taking time and putting it on your calendar to come and join the library today and to listen to Lauren. If you have topics related to your job search that we haven't covered, or something that you think a specific program may address and be helpful to you, you're welcome to send those to me, because I get some of my finest ideas, and I will always credit patrons for bringing those to me. And we'll see if we can address them for you in a future program, if not direct answers. Okay. All right. Good
Yep.
night, everyone. I hope you're all doing well, and please stay in touch with the library. And Lauren, again, thank you so much. We'll
You're
see
so
you all
welcome,
next.
Patty. Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Take care.